Baby, I already told her about you. I already said your name. I already looked her in the eyes and told her that you are my real wife. And I need you to understand. I need you to really let that land, that I didn't say it in the heat of an argument. I didn't say it to hurt anyone. I didn't say it carelessly or without knowing exactly what those words would cost me. I said it because it was the truth. Because I had been living with that truth for so long, carrying it so quietly, that the moment it finally came out of my mouth, it didn't even feel like a confession. It felt like a correction, like I was finally saying the right thing after a long time of saying the almost right thing, the safe thing, the thing that kept everybody comfortable except me. And I know you probably have questions. I know this is a lot to hear, and I know you might be sitting with this right now, feeling something complicated, something that doesn't have a clean name yet. Please don't sort through it too fast. Please just stay here with me for a little while and let me explain. Let me tell you how it happened. Let me tell you everything. From the beginning. Because you deserve the whole story. Not the edited version. Not the version that protects anyone's feelings. The real one. The one I have been rehearsing in the dark for months, turning over and over in my mind, waiting for the moment I finally had the courage to say it out loud to you directly. It started on a night that felt ordinary from the outside. Nothing about it announced itself as the night things would change. The night things would finally become too honest to contain. We were in the middle of a conversation that had started about something completely unrelated, something light, something that should have stayed light, and then something shifted. The way things shift sometimes, without warning, without permission, without any of the careful management you've been doing to prevent exactly this kind of shifting. She asked me something, and the question was simple enough on the surface. The kind of question you can answer easily, if you're willing to stay in the shallow end. But I was tired. I was so deeply tired of the shallow end. I was tired of managed answers and careful phrasing and the emotional arithmetic of figuring out what I could say without saying too much. And so instead of the safe answer, instead of the rehearsed response I had ready, I told her the truth. I told her there was someone. I told her that someone had been living in the most important part of me for a long time. I told her that no matter what I did, or how much distance I tried to create, or how many times I told myself to let it go, that someone remained, constant, certain, completely unwilling to be dislodged by logic or time or the sensible arguments I kept making to myself. And she asked me who? She asked me quietly, with the kind of stillness that comes over a person when they already suspect the answer and are bracing themselves for the confirmation. And I said your name. I said it the same way I say it when I'm alone, with something close to reverence, with the particular tenderness of a person who has held something precious for a long time and knows exactly how to handle it carefully. I said your name, and then I said, she is my real wife. That is the only word that fits her. That is the only word that has ever felt accurate. And the room went very quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful but heavy. The kind that settles over a space when something that cannot be unsaid has just been said. And I sat in that quiet, and I didn't take it back. I want you to know that I didn't soften it or explain it away or add qualifications to make it land more gently. I let it be what it was. The truth finally occupying the space it had earned, finally allowed to exist out loud, instead of just inside me, where it had been living for far too long. Because here's what I need you to understand about why I used that word. Wife. I know it's not a small word. I know it carries weight and history and implication. I chose it on purpose, not to be dramatic, not to make a point. I chose it because every other word fell short. Every softer, more manageable word, the words that would have made the whole conversation easier. None of them told the truth. None of them captured what you actually are to me. The way I think of you when I think about my life. The way you are threaded through my sense of what home means. The way that when I imagine peace, real peace, the settled and certain kind that doesn't have anxiety underneath it, you are the central figure. You are the reason the image has warmth. You are the reason it feels like somewhere I would actually want to be, and not just somewhere I am trying to get through. Wife was the only word that held all of that. So I used it. And I would use it again. I want to tell you what it was like to say it, because I had said it to myself, silently, more times than I can count. But saying it out loud, to someone else, in a real room, with real consequences, that was different. The moment it left my mouth, I felt something release in my chest. Something that had been held very tightly for a very long time. Like a hand that has been clenched around something precious. Finally opening. And yes, there was fear in the opening. Yes, there was the immediate awareness of everything that word would set in motion. But underneath the fear, deeper than it, more fundamental than it, there was something that felt like relief, so complete. It was almost physical. Like my whole body understood that something right had just happened. Like every part of me that had been participating in the long performance of not saying this was finally allowed to rest. She didn't say anything for a long moment. And in that silence I did not fill the space with apology or backtracking. I let the silence be what it was. I let my words stand there, unaccompanied, not needing to be defended or softened or contextualized, because they didn't need any of that. They were already whole, they were already true. And truth, real truth, doesn't need a lot of scaffolding around it. It holds its own weight. I want to tell you what I was thinking about in that silence. I want to tell you because it says everything about where you live in me, and has for longer than I've allowed myself to fully acknowledge. I was thinking about a specific moment with you. Not a dramatic one of the quiet ones, the ones that slip past without fanfare and live forever anyway. I was thinking about the way you once said something to me that was so exactly what I needed to hear that I went completely still inside. Not the kind of still that comes from shock, the kind that comes from recognition, from the feeling of a key turning in a lock, from the sense of something slotting into place that you didn't even know had been out of place. You said it simply. You said it the way you say most things, without performance, without calculation, just directly and warmly, from wherever your truest thoughts live. And I remember thinking, in that moment, with the clarity of something I would not allow myself to name yet, this is the person, this is the one, this is the voice I want to hear when I need to remember who I am. I was thinking about that in the silence, about you. About the particular quality of you that makes every room you're not in feel slightly incomplete. About the way my life rearranged itself around your presence so gradually and so thoroughly that I cannot now find the version of it that existed before you. Cannot locate the contours of who I was or what I wanted before you were part of the equation. You became load-bearing without my noticing. And now the whole structure leans on you. Every important thing in me has you somewhere in its foundation. After the silence, she asked me a question I wasn't expecting. She didn't ask how long. She didn't ask why I hadn't said anything sooner. She asked me what I loved most about you. And I started talking, and I couldn't stop. I talked about the way you listen. Not the polite listening that most people do, where they're waiting for their turn to speak, but the real kind, the kind where you can feel the other person actually receiving what you're saying, turning it over, taking it seriously. I talked about the way you handle hard things with a kind of graceful steadiness that doesn't look like hardness, that looks like warmth and flexibility that makes the hard things seem survivable just because you are somewhere nearby, being completely unafraid of it. I talked about the way you make people feel like their presence matters, like their words land somewhere instead of just evaporating into the air, like they are being genuinely encountered, rather than just processed. I talked about the way you love the things you love, without embarrassment, with your whole self committed to the loving, without the ironic detachment that so many people wear as armor these days. I talked about your laugh, and the specific way it changes your whole face, and how it is the most honest sound I have ever heard. How it is entirely impossible to fake, and how I have never once heard you try to. I talked for a long time, and when I finally stopped, she was quiet again. But it was a different quiet, this time. And she said something I have thought about every day since. She said, and I want to be careful here, because I want to say this exactly right. She said that she had never heard me talk about anyone the way I just talked about you. That in everything I said, there was not one word of doubt, not one hesitation, not one moment where I was searching for what I meant. She said it sounded like someone describing home. And she was right. She was completely right, because that is what you are. You are home in the most essential sense of the word. Not a building, not a location. The feeling, the specific, irreplaceable, arrive and exhale feeling of being somewhere that knows you and accepts you and requires nothing false from you. I want to tell you what happened after that conversation. I want to tell you because it is important that you know where I went, what I did, what the hours looked like after I finally said the truest thing I have ever said out loud about you. I was alone, and I didn't feel the guilt or the chaos I thought I might feel. I thought that after a moment that big, a moment of that much honesty and that many consequences, I would feel torn apart, unsettled, drowning in the complexity of it all. But I didn't. I felt extraordinarily quiet. The way a sky feels after a long storm, washed and clear and enormous, like there is suddenly more space in it than there was before. I sat with that quiet, and I let it be. And at the center of the quiet, warm and certain and completely unafraid, was the thought of you. I kept thinking, she doesn't know yet. She doesn't know that I said her name out loud in that way. She doesn't know that I put the most honest word I have ever used for her into a real conversation with real stakes, and let it stand there on its own without taking it back. She doesn't know that someone heard her name spoken with that much love, that much certainty, that much undefended and unapologetic truth. And I wanted you to know. I needed you to know.